Linda Alvarado. I'm the president and CEO of Alvarado Construction.
As well as?
Oh, I'm I'm a co-owner. Well, I have several hats. Co-owner of the Colorado Rockies baseball club. A couple of years ago, I had been in business and 20 years, and somebody told me, "Oh, you only have two problems." And I'm saying, only two problems? I'm worried about cash flow, backlog, cost of insurance. What? I asked him, and he said, "Well, the name of your company is Alvarado Construction, and people can tell it's a Hispanic firm." I said, "Oh, okay." And I said, "What else?" And he said, "Well, the second problem you have is that when you walk into the room, you look like a woman." I said, "Well, that one might be a little bit more problematic. But today, we don't have to change our last names. We don't have to be a man to succeed in a man's world. And in reality, even though sometimes I'm mistaken for the secretary, I have great people around me, and it is a team that I've formed. And that, I think, is the difference between where we were even 50 years ago and where we are today." There were a couple of challenges there. Feminine first name, which I solved by signing with my initial instead of putting Linda, because that was a red flag that Linda. Secondarily, Alvarado. Hispanics are great laborers and cement finishers, but they're not owners of the company. So dealing with traditional or conventional thinking and myths and stereotypes, one of the things I really needed to overcome. As I grew the company, I learned very quickly what I thought I was selling was construction services. As the company grew and I started seeking building buildings, I thought I was selling construction, but in reality, what I had to sell first was credibility. For people to meet me because they had never seen one, and instead of being 5'5", I was expected to be 6'5" and burly. But it's brains as well as brawn, and breaking that stereotype enabled me over time for people to focus less on my gender or my ethnicity and more on our company's capability. For example, in baseball, as an owner, I was invited to my son's kindergarten class. They were having a career day, or what do you want to be when you grow up, and they were talking about building. So they asked me to come, and I brought my blueprints and my computer and my hard hat and my level. And after the program, the kindergarten teacher looked at my son and he said, "Rob, when you grow up, do you want to be a contractor like your mother?" And he said, "No." And she said, "No. She builds high-rises, convention centers, stadiums." And he said, "No, that's women's work." We're making some progress, but we need to make sure that it's not just about us. I remember on opening day of the very first game, my parents also attended, and they had the owners on the field. And my mother and father were on the front row, and it was very emotional for the whole city. And there were tears in many people's eyes, including my male partners, that we were now, as a city and a community, in the big leagues. But as I looked at my parents' face, it made me remember, as a Latina, about what they went through to open doors and the pride that the community felt in watching the Latino players on the field. I received a letter a couple of weeks later from a Latina who had attended, and she wrote me. I didn't know her, and she said, "I saw you standing on the field. I got very emotional about being in the big leagues, but more than that, you look very short compared to your partners, but as they announced the names, you seemed to grow in stature." And it was as if, when looking at you, it was everything that my grandparents and my parents and I and my children are hoping to achieve, not just in baseball, but the Hispanic American dream. And I always remember that. It's about sport, it's about people, but it's encouraging and enabling people to also see that they too can do extraordinary things.